The webinar is live. People loading up. How's everybody doing? Waiting for everybody to join in here.
Fantastic. Yeah, my family were rooting for the Bucks just because we grew up in New England, so we followed Tom Brady, Gronkowski down there.
Well, everyone, I think we're letting everybody log on here, so I'm just going to say hello from the Tampa Bay area. That's what we were sitting there talking about before we hit the start button.
Anything exciting happened down there lately?
There was a football game I heard that took place, I think it was Sunday night, and I have a background available for that one if anybody wants to see that the Bucks did win here. So, well, while everybody's loading on, I hope everybody enjoyed the Super Bowl. We certainly did down here in Florida. I'm Guy Yatros from Dental Sleep Solutions and DS3, and I'm thrilled to do this with our good friends and partners at ProSomnus. So, hey, Len, Mark, Song, I got my associate Dr. Justin Elikofer here from New Concept Sleep, and this is your all show. We're just here to show you that we wear these devices at hell.
Where my device? We all have to put our devices in to get in the meeting. Is that it?
Yeah, that's right. You have to have that in. That's the passcode to come into the meeting. But we're excited about this new device. We've been using it in our office. Thank you. I want to say up front here for giving us the opportunity to kind of try it out on a dozen or so cases here pre-market, and wearing one myself. And I'm excited to hear what you all have to say about the launch of this really exciting new product. I mean, I think about 20 years ago when I first started doing this, and some of the devices we did, how big they were, how much adjusting we had to do, the way they looked like a coral reef after a month or so of wearing them. We've just come a long way. It's one of my favorite sayings when I give lectures is, you don't know how good you have it out there, people getting started in this, because we've got such advances compared to where we were even 4 or 5 years ago, certainly 20 years ago. So
I think that an important message too for the medical docs that we all work with, and when they think about all different areas of care, whether it's stroke, cancer, what have you, there have been vast improvements in diagnostic technologies, and clinical protocols, and therapeutic devices, and success rates go up in most of the different disease areas where there are investments in technology. And I think there's no reason to think that we can't do the same thing here with oral appliance therapy as better diagnostics become available, and the clinical protocols that you guys teach and the devices that we're trying to make. No reason to think that we can't keep doing better and better.
Well, I think we've got everybody loaded on. Just nearly 200 people on here tonight. So I guess there's a lot of interest in this. Just the format here tonight, it's a webinar. But if you have questions, we will stay on and answer your questions. Put them in the Q&A, and we'll monitor those throughout and get to them as needed. And any questions you have, we'll get to. There's also a chat, but if you want to talk to each other, but the Q&A is where we'd prefer to put them. Again, I'm Dr. Guy Yatros from Dental Sleep Solutions DS3. Dr. Justin Elikofer from New Concept Sleep. We work together in our local 3 offices here. Dr. Martin Murphy, good friend of mine from the Pankey Institute for 20 years ago, and doing dental sleep with ProSomnus. You want to introduce your side of the partnership here tonight?
I will indeed. In fact, we've got our Chief Technology Officer, Sung Kim, here, who's been so instrumental in developing so many of the very innovative products that you've seen come out of ProSomnus. He's quite a capable engineer and has an incredible knowledge base, and he's such an integral part of our success story. And then the gentleman that'll be hosting tonight and leading the discussion will be our CEO, Len Liptak. And Len and I have worked together, oh my gosh, I'm thinking back now, it's 12, 13 years in various capacities and different roles. So it's really kind of fun. It's been a great run. It's been really fun to watch him take a concept of something like an innovative design, like the original Micro 2, and watch how it's grown and evolved into all of the different kinds of opportunities that we have today. So what you're going to see tonight is going to be really informational, really innovative, really super exciting. And I think you're in for a real treat. So I'm going to let you go ahead and take it away, and go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mark, and Guy and Justin and the whole DS3 group for having us on tonight. We're super excited to be here. Very excited about new product Evo. The forum tonight is going to be that, we will share a little bit about results from an IRB controlled study that we fielded as part of validating the performance of the device and the clinical preferences of the device. But in the context of sharing some of the data and results from the IRB controlled study, which Mark was a primary investigator and Dr. Yatros, one of the contributors, we'll ask Dr. Yatros, Dr. Elikofer to comment on how some of this kind of broader data, manifests itself in the cases that they've done. And between Dr. Yatros, Dr. Elikofer, Dr. Murphy, they represent a couple dozen cases worth of experience with this new product. So hopefully we should get some pretty robust conversation. And then same thing with Sung, through some of these different things that we'll talk about. We'll invite Sung to share his point of view from his technical point of view on what we were trying to accomplish with this particular new product, and how that might be translating to the clinical setting. And as everyone's mentioned, if you have any questions, please put them into the Q&A or chat box. We'll be moderating that and do our best to get answers as they come up. Okay, so let's get into Evo. I want to start with this idea that it's very normal for innovations to actually have similar functions. Right? The horse and buggy, for example, had the function of transporting people from point A to point B, just like a Tesla Roadster would have the same function of getting somebody from point A to point B. But I think we can all agree that those two different vehicles would get from point A to point B with a very different performance parameter, a very different experience, whether you measure that performance in terms of acceleration or safety or fuel efficiency, locomotion, all of those things factor into creating a better experience. And that's how, we view oral appliance therapy. As Dr. Yatros mentioned early on, maybe starting with some devices that required a lot of adjustment and wrangling and management to keep those devices functional, but they did serve the function of repositioning the mandible into a position that was efficacious for the patient. But as all things evolve, just like our evolution from our horse and buggy to the Tesla Roadster, our goal at ProSomnus and what we're here to do is to evolve oral appliance therapy so that even though it may fulfill a similar function, the performance and the experience is significantly different, and that's what we're aspiring to do here. So why Evo? Why another device? There's 160 FDA cleared devices. Why do we need another one? Well, the simple matter is that OAT quality errors cost your practice time, money, referrals, and overall treatment effectiveness. And I'll share a little bit about that. There was a study published in 2014 at the AADSM and then published after that in the JDSM, a study of 309 consecutively treated patients with what we'll call legacy non-ProSomnus OAT devices. And the extra chair time for wrangling and in adjusting and repairing and remaking cost the practice an additional $158 above and beyond the cost of the device in terms of chair time, doctor time, clinical time. A full 21% of the 309 devices required these types of interventions, unplanned adjustments, quality issues. 13 of them had to outright be repaired or remade. It's a very high error rate, and it results in deteriorating the experience, the effectiveness, and ultimately the profitability in your practice. It's a big observation there. Also, we just completed a survey of 150 sleep medicine physicians, and they said that they'd be willing to quadruple their referrals to each of your practices if some of these key barriers are addressed. And 85% of them cited poor OAT device quality as one of the key barriers. They also had issues with access to high quality trained dentists and things like that that DS3 and others are working on through educational platforms. but OAT device quality was a big issue, and one of the key things that we can do to earn more referrals from physicians. And then another example here, Arnold Hokema published a paper not too long ago studying the side effects of mandibular advancement devices in CPAP over a 10-year period. And that study showed that the dental changes and bite-related changes and dental occlusion changes appeared to be worse with MAD versus CPAP over a 10-year period of time. And so, it begs the question of, can we do things to mitigate the prevalence of these side effects? And so those were some of the things that went into us, motivating us to ask ourselves, can we design a better device, make a better device that helps us overcome these quality issues and provide a better performance experience than prior generation of devices, be it ours or any others. And so, so what we did is, what we try to do is follow a proper FDA design input, design output, validation, verification protocol. We got insights from dozens of leading dental sleep medicine providers. A lot of them are on the call tonight. So thank you very, very much for that. So we have these voice of customer focus group type events, gatherings, where we try to learn. We have our internal quality data that we assess and evaluate and use that as an input. We also conduct research with sleep physicians because they, in some respects, are controlling the prescriptions and referrals. So we want to understand it's on their mind. Then we generate prototypes, and during COVID, it was difficult to have as broad of a prototype review as we'd like, but we certainly had a lot of our sales team members, for example, get out there and meet with some local docs who were comfortable in COVID-friendly environments to review some prototypes. Then we engaged in an IRB test, and that's what we'll be going over tonight is some of the results of that IRB test. And then now we're currently in our beta test phase, moving towards launch phase. So we're very excited about this. But as you can see, we take a lot of input from a lot of different people to try to come up with a device that's going to make a meaningful difference to the dental practice, dental patients, and everyone who's associated with it.
Len, I would just say that's one of the things that I think we keep getting as feedback from everybody is how much they do appreciate how you all ask them what they're looking for, what they want in terms of improvement, and then that we listen to those kinds of inputs and work on developing products. Sung is able to do that with his team. That's a real positive thing that you see in this particular industry, which you don't always see. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly how this process is set up. We do the upfront things here are all about listening. The middle, about asking the questions. The middle things are about, confirming, did we hear you correctly? We listened, did we hear you correctly? And then the last part of this is about seeing if those improvements actually translate into the benefits that we expect them to deliver. So that's really what this is all about.
You all do a really outstanding job with that, by the way, of your events. I think, one could think, well, geez, they're just trying to, get us all together to make us dedicated or something to your company, but that's not the case. I mean, certainly that helps, but you take that information and you genuinely listen. And I know conversations we've had with you. I know, Justin, you went to one of their events, and literally things that we talked about, we've seen your company further down the pike listen to and implement. That makes us feel like as a clinician out here, because it takes us time to be at those meetings and to give our input and to try these things and to actually be listened to is fantastic. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you for that. And it very much is the case. I mean, we view an oral device as a tool, right? And a tool that helps each and every provider accomplish their goals of providing a great experience for the patient and getting them to good, into good, stable therapy. And, just like with any project around the house or anything you do, a better tool sure as heck makes the job a lot more enjoyable and successful. And so that's kind of what we try to do here, and to give you guys better tools. Thanks. So a little about EVO, based on the feedback from the leading DSM providers and sleep physicians, we wanted to create a device that everyone can trust, a device that's comfortable, a device that's easy to deliver, more durable, more hygienic, more precise, something that could be marketed to the sleep medicine community to earn more referrals, and ultimately a device that's preferred, preferred by patients, preferred by the treatment team, and the dental sleep medicine provider across the board. And this is easier said than done, right? Because sometimes it's difficult to make things more comfortable and more durable, because historically, to make something more durable, there's been a tendency to add metal, a tendency to reinforce, a tendency to make things bigger and bulkier, but that comes at the expense of comfort. And so it's very difficult to do both of those things, right? And or to make things easy to deliver and hygienic, because usually making something easier to deliver means adding a ball clasp or adding a soft liner. But those types of approaches actually really compromise hygiene or precision. So there are a lot of inherent trade-offs with these very simple design objectives. And that's where Sung comes into play, is trying to figure out how to resolve these historical trade-offs through better innovation and optimized design and optimized material selection. So that's really what we try to take all of the things that we've learned over the past couple of years and have heard from providers and put it into EVO. So this is another little more detail on the device. A couple things to point out: it's got a lot of tongue space, about 4.5 times more tongue space than the predicate, your typical oral appliance device. It's very small and compact. It's got 2.5 times less overall volume in the mouth than a traditional oral device. We've got dual 90-degree posts that that are familiar with ProSomnus, but what's different is that we've radiused them, we've rounded them, so they're very, very comfortable. And we've also built in special protections to make sure that the soft tissue doesn't get pinched between the posts. So we really take precautions to make sure that this is the most comfortable, easy to use device. The material we've selected is 10 times stronger. It's shatterproof. It passed the military drop test. It's high impact resistant. If Dr. Yatros was talking about lifting the Stanley Cup earlier, probably could take this in the backyard and slap it around like a hockey puck, and it's going to be okay. If it's not, don't get upset with us, but you get the concept. It's pretty robust. It's much easier to deliver. So we selected a material that has a lot more favorable modulus profile, so that it's easier to deliver for better first time fit. It's very restoration friendly. You can't adjust it chair side, and it has a natural anterior opening because, as you can see from the picture here, this device is very anatomically friendly. And we'll get into some of the details on that. But what we really do is we take the actual surface of the patient's teeth and mirror them onto the device itself. And so when the patient puts their tongue against the lingual side of the device, it's not just implied anatomy, it's actually a mirror representation of the patient's real anatomy. So it should be a familiar anatomy to the patient. And why don't I stop right here and ask Dr. Yatros, Dr. Elikofer, and Dr. Murphy, if you want to comment on any of these things that maybe you've noticed in your clinical cases or patients have pointed out when you've delivered the device.
I think I can summarize everything on the screen with a couple of words. It's very small and very light. So, I mean, compared to other devices, I mean, it's really, it has hardly any weight or size to it. So when you put it in your mouth, personally, I mean, I think anybody out there doing this that's new, make these devices on yourself as you're making them for someone else. I've worn, I don't think I've ever given a patient a device I haven't worn myself. And when I put this in my mouth, and our patients have said the same thing, it just, it doesn't feel like there's much there. And that's what you want. We want the jaw to move forward with as little stuff in the mouth, feeling just as much like our natural teeth. Like you said, I hadn't even thought about how those ridges, but it just feels like nothing's there. It feels really, really light, and it's small. And so that's the two words I would use to describe it. And someone's asking about the strength, that someone can answer as compared to what, but this material, you can bend it, you can squeeze it like this. It's, it's a very, durable material from what we've found so far. We haven't used it for years, but I expect it'll probably last longer than I want it to. Because if I have it's up to me, I might have a self-destruct button in about 5 years. when insurance
Sung
will pay
is
for
working
another
on
one.
that. Sung is working on a self-destruct button.
Yeah. So, but that's my word: small and light. I think that we underestimate that light feeling too. It just felt like nothing's in there. Justin,
Yeah,
what do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, just overall, ProSomnus, this device in particular, I use the word shocking. You know, a lot of the patients they're shocked, they're surprised of the minimalism of the device overall, and so you know that's what you want. You know, I think Ken or Len touched on the experience, and so you know when we start off an experience like that where a patient is just super flabbergasted at the very beginning of treatment, things usually go well from that point. So that's what I would have to say about it.
Yeah, I think that I would add when Guy was talking about the patient responses to it, I've delivered about a dozen of these now, and every time I've gone in and I've handed it to the patient and had them deliver it themselves, so that they've put it in their own mouths. And almost all of them, the 5 IRB cases that I did, where they had all worn previous devices, but the other had never worn a device before, and they just looked at it, and I said, that's the upper, and they put it in the upper, and I showed them how to tell the upper from the lower, and they were able to place it themselves and take it out. So it was absolutely, I think Keith Batchelor, our product development vice president, talks about first time fit. I mean, it really had that first time fit quality. And that was one of the things, I'm not trying to steal your thunder, Len, from the IRB results, but that was one of the things that was remarkable in the IRB is in the IRB study, when they did that, by the way, that's an institutional review board. So it's an FDA project management tool where they oversee a study that you're doing. You can't just go out and test these things prior to FDA approval on patients. And so you have to have first animal testing, and that's usually Jerry, myself, and Len, which is for all of us. And if we live through that, then we go ahead and we get an institutional review board going. And so we did that. Gotta hope, no, you're not recording this, are you? So
Yeah, we are. Good. We'll see this again someday.
So then we do the IRB, and with the IRB, we specifically set out to have patients who had worn CPAPs and previous soft liner devices and previous nylon devices, so that we could say, you know, how did these drop in and fit compared to those? And the results were remarkable. And so the patient preferences, and Len will go over that in the study, was just astounding. We had hoped that we would do well, and we actually did so well in terms of the preference over previous and predicates that it's almost like it was a setup. It was just unbelievable, the kind of responses we got from patients. Plus, as you said, Guy, they're just small and they fit in the mouth. Answering a question out loud, it's 10 times stronger than when we say than predicate materials. When we look at conventional polymethyl methacrylate is actually a pretty strong material. And then when you look at our control cured PMMA that we mill, that's stronger yet. And then when you look at this, it has the durability and the functionality that it becomes even stronger, and Sung will speak to some of those characteristics. It is very different than the Micro 2, very different than the IA, very different from a platform standpoint. This extruded anatomy that the artificial intelligence does is remarkable. As Guy said, patients put it in their mouth and it just feels like it's part of their mouth because it is their own anatomy, just extruded out. It's one of the kind of neat things that they're able to do. Sorry if I'm stepping on any of your slides.
We'll go excited. I noticed some of the questions too.
I'll address that, the veneer one too. I don't know that we've delivered any on veneers, Justin, but we had a discussion today. We knew we were going to do this webinar. I think it's going to be our material of choice for veneers because it's more flexible. And it just, I don't feel like it's going to pull on them as much. I think, you know, the harder acrylics, sometimes, you know, the undercut snapping over and so forth would worry us a little bit more. So I can't say that we've done a lot on the veneers yet. Justin might be able to speak to that, but I believe it will be a wonderful material for that.
We have done one case on veneers and it hasn't caused any problems yet. So.
Okay. Well, I'd have to count up all the restorations that were on all the patients' mouths. We were trying to compare to CPAP and previous soft liners and printed nylon devices and patients that had multiple restorations or were bruxed. We were trying to put the very toughest situations in front of ourselves. So I had 2 patients that I'd made previous, one a soft liner device and 2 flexible nylon devices because of the amount of restorations they had. And we delivered this all fully with confidence. They were excited about having it. and had really positive things to say that we captured in some of the videos. We were talking about, oh, I feel like I can open my mouth with this device, and I couldn't with the other one. I could take a drink of water in the middle of the night. I could talk with it if I have to. I think guys had his in half the night, and you don't even know it. So really cool.
No, thanks for that. I think we also have some data on later on from the 8 or 10 people in the IRB and their willingness to use non-veneer cases or restorative cases, and it's quite positive. So, so a little bit about the IRB tests and how we set that up, and Mark was our primary investigator overseeing it. But it was an intercept case format. So as Mark mentioned, we picked patients who are already in relatively happy, comfortable treatment with either a liner style or a nylon style device, because we really wanted to know how EVO would compare with people who are already using those types of devices. And we also wanted people who had already previously been in a CPAP and failed it, or for one reason or another, which those patients aren't too hard to find. It's most of them. And we wanted to know, is EVO performance clinically satisfactory and preferred to what they had with either their CPAP or with their liner style or nylon style predicate device. 31 cases were delivered under the IRB in total across 8 different practices. We've now delivered hundreds of EVO devices through the beta test. So we've scaled it up quickly, and we'd be happy to share expand more on that data as we go through it. But we're really going to focus on the survey results from the IRB over the next few slides. So in terms of comfort and clinical performance, 97% said EVO contours felt natural and smooth. 86% said it was much easier to close their lips. And a couple of slides will show you about the facial profile of the device. And then 93% said EVO is smaller than the other OATs that they've worn. So why don't I pause here and see if Dr. Yatros, Dr. Elikofer, or Dr. Murphy, if you have anything that you want to share in this regard to how patients responded to the comfort in the feel.
Well, I can't shut my lips
pretty well.
I can't shut my lips around the device. But then again, I can't shut my lips around any device. It's a vertical maxillary. I just can't shut my lips. So, but it's as good a lip seal as I can get with a vertical maxillary excess and a short upper lip. But
yeah, Justin, what have you seen?
Yeah, especially the nylon style devices, getting lip seal has been a challenge for us. Again, this, whenever I transition, I love, predictability, right? That's what we all want. And I know when a patient comes in with an older style dorsal, if I can transfer them to a device like this, they just, that last graph there said the EVO is smaller. They're just so surprised again with how much more comfortable it is and minimal it is.
Yeah, it's we've got some photographs. I don't think they're in your slide deck, Len, because I've seen your slides, but we've got some photographs of patients who did have lip competency problems, who had a much easier time with taking a horizontal picture of their lips at rest, closing together better. It's the anatomical form that it's extruded from the anatomy of the teeth just makes that a little bit easier. It's so thin there that it's going to be, as Guy pointed out, it's not going to be an answer for everybody. Not everybody's going to ever be able to close their lips together, but it's a whole lot easier with this device than anything else we've seen.
And it's pretty, I guess, is the last thing I'll add, is that when I show it to patients, they're
so
genuinely they're genuinely excited about it. It's not obtrusive. It's a very, very good looking device aesthetically as well. So good job with that, and all your other devices as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the things that came to mind when I saw this data on comfort, actually, we got a little bit of indication of this before we saw the data, because some of the IRB participants were nice enough to videotape the patient during the delivery and ask the patient some of these survey questions after they delivered the device. And, it was exciting. Maybe this is a big deal to me, but not to anybody else, but the number of patients just kept the device and started talking and answering the questions was fantastic. It's not something that they necessarily could have done with their legacy device. And then a few of them even just got out of the chair and started walking home, walking out of the conference, forgetting that the device was even in, which was also, to me, hopefully indicative of the fact that they're comfortable. So, all right. Sung, do you want to go through some of the technical elements here? We touched on a few of these earlier, it being smaller anatomy, but do you want to add a few words here?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. So, I think the overall product development, we always try to achieve better with less. So I think it's similar themes here for EVO as well. We're trying to minimize the profile because, lower volume means more space and for patients' tongues, more comfort. So we carry that advantage to our EVO products. And then, as Len mentions, since we launched IA Select, those lower profile products, we always done this true anatomical contours. So we don't know, as probably some of you guys know, I'm not a dental technician, so my dental techniques of carving outer surface by hand is not as good as some skilled experienced technicians. So we try to use patients' anatomical features as much as we could, and then EVO is not an exception here either. So we take all this patient's anatomical features and use that as a splint shapes. With the post designs, as we have launched few products, we collected a few feedbacks throughout the years, and we incorporated all this feedback into this post design. So as you can see that we have done minimal lateral profile for lower. So we taper that and trim the mesial half of the lower post, and also introduce soft tissue guard because we have heard some feedback that soft tissue is getting pinched between upper and lower posts. So those are new features. And then we got rid of all these sharp edges with the EVO post. And then also EVO design overall, if you look at it, there is no 90-degree bends or 90-degree edges. It is as smooth as we could have done. I think that's one of those key factor that patients feel comforts with their soft tissues. So those are also key feedbacks to create a comfort for EVO products.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Okay, next thing here also with comfort, because there were some questions, smaller than what, lower profile than what, and so these charts all have references. We try to use things like NS, we try to use the generic descriptors, nylon strap or fulcrum strap or reverse dorsal, traditional dorsal, just for the purpose of trying to be reasonable about things. But we do have references here if you just want to think in terms of predicate. If you really want to know, I saw some of the questions in chat about that. Just let us know. We can give you we can kind of translate some of these acronyms for you if you're interested. But some of the other things here, Sai, if you want to just talk about kind of the lower profile and the lingual and the facial and the titration mechanism?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, those are achieved by using patient's anatomical features. So we take the patient's dentitions and I use that as to create a splint. And I think that's why we were able to achieve these great profile for facials and lingual profile, which is a key for tongue and then lip competency. And also lower titration mechanism, I think is important as well, because we do one-piece constructions. I mean, we are not gluing things on our EVO splint. We designed it as one piece and then we produce as one piece. And that's one of the key reasons why we were able to achieve these great low profile design for EVO products.
Thank you, Sung. Excellent. So next set of IRB questions centered on delivery and fit during the IRB. 93% said EVO was easier to deliver than their other OATs. 90% said the retention was just right. And 93% said EVO was comfortable at delivery. And so, again, I'd like to invite the doctors to share any observations or comments they might have on, when they worked with Evo, how it was to deliver and how well it fit or didn't fit when delivering the device.
Yeah, I think it all lines up with what you just said here. I haven't had to make any adjustments with mine, and the retention it has been just right. We have a lot of patients that complain about tightness, and that causes tooth soreness, and there is some magic there to making that just right, and all thumbs up on our end so far.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I would say when you put it in, you're going to feel it's a little looser than some of the devices you fit. But that's, like Justin just mentioned, a good thing. I mean, it just wants to stay in place. It doesn't, it has a little more give to it. So it doesn't feel, in my own mouth, it doesn't feel as tight. When we put it in the patient's mouth, it doesn't feel as tight. But do you really want it to feel tight? What you want it to do is not come loose. That's what you want. You don't want something that's like snaps in and the patient has, I mean, we've all done that. If you've, have done any device at all, that the patient snaps in, their eyes get real big and they're kind of concerned, and you're like, that's okay. This one doesn't do that. So don't feel it's, I mean, I guess you could think, hey, it feels too loose when you first put it in, but just, is it going to come out loose? No, it doesn't. And I think for me personally wearing it, that's one thing I like about it better. I feel it feels lighter, and I don't feel, I know, just when you put it in, it just feels like it doesn't snap in. And I having worn hundreds of devices, it seems like over the 20 years, it's kind of a different feeling, but it's kind of nice. It's like the way it feels like it should be, that you don't want this thing pushing on your teeth. You just want it to stay in place. So I guess my warning would be, when you first put it in, you're going to not feel it feels as tight. I mean, Mark, I don't know, you've done more of these than we have. Is that a fair statement? I think if you're talking about these devices out there, it's going to
yeah, I would say that, and Sung explains this really well. When I try to do it, I trip over myself a lot. He's the scientist and understands all this stuff, but he does all these great diagrams of round structures called teeth, and he talks about these undercut areas and these passive fit areas, and he talks about the mechanics and the physics, and it's all pretty impressive. But the bottom line is, this material flexes into the undercuts where you want to design retention. And when you do that with acrylic, you are going to have that kind of tightness of fit feeling sometimes. And that's always something I wrestle with. I'll tell patients with the PMMA, with the milled PMMA, I'll say, now these things are going to feel crazy tight when they go in, but don't worry about that. Crazy tight is good. They're going to feel very normal after a couple, 3 days. You'll get so used to it. But if I make adjustments for how they feel tight today, then they're going to be loose in a few days, and you won't like that. And that's different than pinching or cutting. So I have this great big discussion with them on my delivery. We've talked about this in the past. And you don't have to say that with this. This slips past the undercuts and hugs it. And because it's got that little flex to it, even though it's grabbing onto the undercut, think about this. It flexes into the undercut and grabs on. So the device, like you said, doesn't come off. But because it's not rigid, it doesn't squeeze back to its form. This material, too, when it comes back off, will return to exactly its original shape. So it's not going to loosen over time. It's going to stay with that nice, snug fit. But it's, I think Kent Smith said it best. He said it's like putting on a pair of new cotton socks. They just slip on and feel comfortable. And I think that's what the patients tell us. It's really good.
That's funny you said, because in my slides, when I teach this to new people, the big bold print on the delivery is, tell them it's going to feel too tight everywhere. I mean, that's the first, I mean, you can, I'm not making that, if you come to one of my courses, we tell you, when you get the device, if you don't tell them that, the patient's going to want you to start whittling on it. And then it's like you said, it's going to be too loose. And with this one, you don't get that feeling. And that's, I mean, as having this conversation here, it's really pretty huge when you think about it, that that's one of the obstacles we have. That's what we're always trying to do, is make these obstacles easier for us to, and our patients. And if we don't have to have that long discussion about, you're going to tell me it's too tight, that's shared time right there. It's saving in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a reason why for years oral appliance therapy devices have used ball clasps or soft liners, because getting things to fit correctly is a challenge. Dental anatomy is everyone's dental anatomy is different, and trying to find those undercuts is not so easy. But I think the R&D team here, kudos to Sung and the team, who stepped back and looked at not just whatever materials are readily available in the dental lab, but what materials are available across the entire medical industry, and which type of materials might provide us with the best performance profile for what we're trying to do here. And that's, I think, what we've got here with the EVO material.
Yeah, my question, this might be all in my head, Sung, but I feel like the material of the EVO now gives us a little bit more traction on those shorter crowns. Would I be correct in saying that, or is that all in my crazy head that I try to envision?
Yes, I mean, great transition points. Thank you. I mean, like it sounds like we rehearsed, but go to the next slide.
Anybody knows us knows we don't rehearse. So
here's your dollar. Here's your dollar.
Excellent point. So we achieved the flexibility by, if you look at the chart, it looks like it's not better, but actually it's better because we reduced the Young's modulus, which is the engineering term for flexibility. So the lower the number is, it's better flexibility. So PMMA has great peak force, which is hard acrylic, but as Dr. Mark and then Dr. Justin mentions, it is hard plastic. So and it's not good for it's not good for creating retentions. Utilizing dental anatomy, which is undercuts that we use. So those are the characteristics that we were trying to create with EVO product by decreasing Young's modulus and increasing our flexibility. And then the right upper chart shows the simple diagrams to indicate that that EVO material on the left and the predicate devices for PMMA, which is the right side. As you can see that the flexibility differences is quite substantial. And I think that's what it creates, that easy insertions, also increasing our ability to create more retentions, utilizing more dental anatomy of each patient. Another critical things that we have to we have to be informed or aware of is this plastic deformations. So when those force is introduced to the material, does it go back to its initial shape? That means if it does, that it means it was in elastic regions, which is required and which is essential to create not to create any tooth movements. I mean, if you go into plastic deformation, which is shown on the right side, it didn't go back to its initial shape, which can create constant force on tooth, which resulting in a dental tooth movements. And then Len, if you go to the next slides, which is important for us because especially our devices, it does not have soft liner. Our device does not have ball clasp. I mean, we could have just adding I mean, we have done it. We kind of tried it out for adding soft liner for our products, but it created other problem like everybody knows and everybody's aware of. It's laminating colors and it just gets nasty. So that was not the solutions. So this is how we addressing this easy insertions feedback that we got from customers. So by increasing flexibility, that means it will be flexible cross arch directions. So that means when it's passing height of contour, which is wider than undercut area, it will pass those height of contour with easiness. I mean, it will be easier to pass height of contour than PMMA because when it's passing that regions, as you can see it on the bottom middle shows that the facial sides of the member goes into compressions as it compresses that side. And then the lingual side, it goes in tension, it will be stretched. So those are our built-in mechanism for insertions. And these are all getting simulated in our software. So it's critical to have flexibility in that reasons to create easy insertions. And the EVO is a 50% improvement in flexibility. It does that. And then Dr. Justin mentions about getting into more those undercut area, which might be hidden below the soft tissues or gum. By having this flexibility, we are going to be able to design deeper to create a more undercut, to create a better retention for our appliances. So if we were able to, let's say, we're able to produce, I mean, we were not able to create all cases because of some dentition was challenging. But I think that with this material, I think we're going to be able to create a product for wider range of patients. I think that will be a key things with the EVO material.
One of the questions here is, and I think you just answered it, but make sure I'm getting it right, is what about, because of the flexibility, it's up here somewhere, maybe Mark already answered it, but it's flexible to expect more tooth movement over time. And what I'm hearing from you is the answer is no, because the flexibility goes around, gets in those undercuts, sits there passively, and it goes back to its original shape,
Right.
as opposed to the PMMA, which all that flexibility over time can actually warp the material. Is that what
Yes.
I gathered
So,
out of that? So I think that answers that question, which is fantastic. Exactly what we want to hear.
and then also, I mean, we've been known for our kind of precisions retainer fit. That has carried into EVO. So we kept all the good things, and we adding these improvements on top of our advantage that we've been known for. So, you know, I think it's good question, but I think that we'll have a better chance of preventing side effects such as tooth movements.
You know, Guy, and one of the follow-up questions to that question was somebody asking if we had any long-term studies on this. Well, we don't, because it just came out. But all of the performance characteristics mechanically are so similar to what we were able to get in terms of it being stable from a retentive standpoint, similar to PMMA, again, with the added flexibility on insertion and removal, that we fully expect to see the same sort of results as we did. And that's in contrast to what you do normally see with the flexible, in the very soft, flexible liner materials, or the flexible printed nylons, where you do see more tooth movement, or something with a ball clasp. You'll see it with those.
Yeah. Good. I am going to try to speed up just a little bit.
These are great questions in discussion.
Yeah, a lot of people.
I'm trying to answer them online as best I can.
I love it. And some of the questions we may cover as we go through the next few slides, and then we'll leave some time at the end to cover things off, if that's okay with everyone. The next topic in our IRB was to look at the durability of the material. 93% felt confident in the durability of the material based on what they experienced clinically, and 97% said that they would use EVO for patients with bruxism. Dr. Yatros, Dr. Elikofer, Dr. Murphy, anything you'd add to this data based on your clinical experiences with the durability of the device?
Well, I've seen some unusual tests for the device that probably a lot of other people have not had the opportunity to see. Demonstrations outside of the formal military drop tests and things like that. I guess it's one of those things that when we're 2 or 3 years down the road, and like patients coming back in with, really great, clean looking, milled, control cured PMMA that we've seen, we're going to see the same thing with this. And I think Guy made a great point. Maybe the stuff's so strong, we'll want it to break someday, and it won't. But I think it's going to be great for bruxism. When I saw I don't know if one of your slides shows this, but when they did the breakage test, Sung could speak to it more effectively, but you bend something until it breaks. This just kept bending and bending and bending and snapped right past through the thing. So it didn't actually fail that way and snap back to its position. It was crazy to see that. The graft just goes and goes and goes, and it snaps back to its original position. It was crazy.
Yep.
I mean, you can break it. You got to kind of work hard in it, like Guy was pinching it like that. And if you do that, a couple thousand times, you'll eventually get anything to break. But it's in normal use, it is virtually unbreakable. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I don't have too much to really add to that, Guy.
Well, we haven't had it long enough to know for sure. But I feel very confident it's going to be a very strong device. I can, you can take it in your hand, you can squeeze it, you can bend it. So I feel pretty good about it. So, I think, being in engineering before I went to dental school, things, don't, you think you want something really stiff, and I forget all the terms because it's been 30 something years ago, but having that flexibility is going to keep it from breaking. I mean, I know that because, tensile strength, I think is what it is, right? Is that the right word? You can bend something, and that's what causes the break. And acrylic is more brittle. Well, even the PMMA, it'll bend some, and then it'll break. This bends more, so that's why I feel fairly confident it's going to last probably longer than I want it to, as I previously mentioned. Oh.
Sounds good. Well, thank you. And I always think, my eyeglasses, I'm able to keep them for more than a couple years. But man, whenever I go back to my optometrist, they tell me that the prescription has expired.
Right.
And then I need a new prescription, even though my glasses seem fine. So
yeah, my only concern is this is might hurt our recurring annual recall in 5 years. I still have a son to put through college, so but we'll figure that out. So
thank you. So just a little bit here. So I'm going to cover this one off really quickly. Jump in if I get it wrong, but I want to just move things forward a little bit here. So 10 times more durable versus the predicate. 17% better lateral torque strength and 52% better anterior posterior torque strength. All of this is done with third-party laboratory testing, engineering laboratory testing, and it's stuff that we have to do as part of demonstrating to the FDA that the device is safe and effective. So that's where this comes from. But Sung, if you would, could you say just a few words here about the military drop test that we did with this device?
Yeah, so we did a 6 sides drop for 40 devices, about 240 cycle, and then it passed. So it's coming from that impact strength. The previous chart that you had, Len, is that 10 times greater than PMMA. So Dr. Yatros mentioned that it absorbs energies, so it doesn't shatter. So it's created more toughness for the device.
Yeah, and this comes from our, kind of the real world stuff that we hear every day, that the patient, was brushing their teeth and whacked it off their counter and it falls on the floor. That's a 1.5 millimeter, that's a 1.5 meter drop test, right? So we wanted this device to be designed for the type of, normal things that happen when a patient uses a device every day. We'll skip over the ship test. So next one is with stain resistance. The IRB test, 97% said it's easy to keep clean and that's a very important factor. Dr. Yatros or Dr. Elikofer, Dr. Murphy, anything you'd say about being able to keep devices clean and how important that is, and your thoughts about how it might be to keep the EVO clean?
Well, I want to jump on that one because I can hold mine up close, but it still looks brand new, and I think it's going to look brand new in a couple, 3 years as well. And that's important for me because when my physicians see my patients and they see them with these oral appliances down the road, if they look like, Guy, what did you say about it earlier? It looked like a piece of coral reef. If it looks like a piece of coral reef with things growing on it.
Should we call it oral reef?
Oral reef. Oh, I like that.
There we go.
Just like it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right?
Yeah, right.
The oral reef like that, that's not going to make those physicians your friend. And it's one of the reasons that physicians look at us and wonder what the heck we're doing, because we get these gunky devices out there. So we've got, I think cleanliness we certainly would say it's next to godliness, but it's next to physicianliness, I guess, in my opinion.
Yeah, when you do a lot like we do, you're always surprised by what people put in their mouth sometimes. And, we'll have our annuals back and we'll just get some, and they are just absolutely horrid. They are absolutely funky and smelly. And you wonder how they put that in their mouth at night. And again, Len was talking about the experience. And so, no one wants to put a gunky device there, and smelly especially.
On the right-hand side, we did an internal bench test on that point, Dr. Elikofer. We did a 10-day accelerated mustard staining test. We took and we used a colorimeter to actually measure the change in the color. We took a colorimeter reading of the devices before they went into the test, and then another colorimeter reading after the 10-day mustard test. And what we see with EVO is a 3.2 delta E change, which is pretty much the same as what we saw when we put our ProSomnus IA device through the same test. So it confirmed that to us from a stain resistance perspective, it had a very similar performance profile to IA. Next, you'll notice the CPAP mask here. We actually put a CPAP mask through that test. But surprisingly, the CPAP mask did better than a lot of the other legacy devices that we tested. The milled with the liner had an 8.2 change in delta T, all the way up to the nylon, which had a pretty substantial change in the color, a pre-post test. But the good news here is that EVO seemed to have a similar performance profile to IA. Even despite the fact that it had that extra flexibility. And that's because the porosity is also very low with the EVO device, but it's a slightly different chemistry that makes it, flexible, but yet still have minimal porosity. Sung, do you want to say a few words about some of this biocompatibility testing? I think, we talked to some folks, I'll set this up for you, Sung. Every device that is cleared by the FDA achieves some minimal level of biocompatibility. So I think we want to make sure that we say that right up front. But I think there was also some that said, well, this material is called biocompatible nylon. So does that make it more biocompatible? I think anything that passes the FDA is biocompatible. But what we've done with EVO is selected a material that is medical grade class 6. And Sung, if you want to just explain a little about what medical grade class 6 means, that would be super helpful.
Yeah, it's highest class, the medical plastics polymers that we could have used for this device. So, it carries a lot of classifications, as Len mentioned, USB class 6, also ISO 10993. All this classifications comes with the material. On top of that, we also perform our internal biocompatibility test, which shows it on the left columns. So those are actual EVO devices that we have performed testing. So it's not acrylic, so it will be less issues with allergies, and it stays in polymer groups. It's not metal, it's not nylon. So it's one of those highest class medical polymer that we have used. It's as the slide shows.
Yeah, and the way that I simplify all this is to be classified as medical grade class 6, it has to pass a series of oral tests, a series of dermal tests, and a series of subdermal tests in order to be considered class 6. And that, as so much, that's the highest level of biocompatibility testing that's available. Okay, in terms of precision, and I want to get the docs back into this one. 100% said the precision is a very important feature of any device and of EVO, and in precision meaning that that when the device is delivered to the patient, that it postures the mandible in the position that was prescribed by the doctor in the first place. And so I'd like to invite Dr. Yatros and Elikofer and Murphy to comment on, to the extent to which the EVO device was able to reflect their prescription for that particular patient who received it.
So I think what you're asking is, where we took the bite, relative to where the device, when we go to deliver it in. And that's a good point. I mean, they're, as with all your devices, they're where we took the bite. So we take the bite with the George gauge with the 3mm bite fork at -1 or 0, end to end. Let's just make it easy. That's where the device is when we put it in the mouth every time. So I think your lab in particular does a great job in general. And we found, at least the ones I've seen, Justin's seen a few more than I have even, wherever we took the bite where they were delivered. I assume was your experience as well, Justin.
Yeah, we use a digital scanner, and that's a big part of the precision here. And ProSomnus is the other part of that. So I haven't had any problems. Specifically, haven't noticed any for sure.
Thank you.
I think that what I'd probably say is that the beauty of what they're able to do, and when I was doing analog impressions, I would get the models back with the case. And I remember telling Sung and everybody, I don't really need the models back. It's not like I'm going to use them for anything, but they'd still send them back because I'm sure they don't want to store them either. But they would come back, and every one of those cases would have a magnetic mounting plate on it from a Stratos articulator. And I think, and whether you get a printed model that was used on an articulator or where you get an analog model that had a mounting plate on it, it's just this whole idea that everything that they're trying to do inside really replicates that initial bite position that you took. And it's so critical, because if you start to do these things by hand or not really on an articulator, or you're not measuring those things as accurately, you could get a case back that's off a millimeter or 2 or 3, or as you can see, more in different directions three-dimensionally. And that's going to impact how long it's going to take you to titrate that patient to position. It's going to, it could be up, right, left, yaw. It could be so many different iterations of where you originally intended to take the bite. And so it's critical to at least know that you're starting where you intended to start. And especially when we spend as much time as we do, or if my brothers and sisters who are using other ways like pharyngometry to determine three-dimensional bites, I use a snore test, and I use a George gauge, or if somebody's using a Matrix Plus, whatever the technology is, they're using neuromuscular bite. All those bites, you work really hard to figure out the starting position. I want that back. So I really do appreciate this particular dimension.
Yep. And we take that, we take that seriously. I think one of the papers that came out right around the time we were developing ProSomnus was by Watanabe, and he showed that a 2 millimeter change in AP position equates to a 20 to 25% change in AHI. So, we do believe that microns, if not millimeters, matter. And certainly the AADSM definition of an oral appliance indicates that 1 millimeter of titration interval is important, with the understanding that 1 millimeter is a clinically significant interval. And then the converse is true, that over protrusion, there are a number of studies showing that, that as we increase protrusion, the risk of side effects go up, as is the risk of potentially loop gain, which can be counterproductive to trying to reduce someone's AHI. So we really want to make sure that we put the bite exactly where you give it to us. You spend a lot of, dental providers spend a lot of time, effort, and energy to find the right bite position, and we want to make sure that we respect that in how we make the devices. And so we did a study to actually validate that. We may have a master dental cast. When we asked each manufacturer to make 3 versions of their 3 replicates of their device from that dental cast, and then we measured the positioning of the device, as Mark mentioned, articulated it and measured where the actual device put the lower jaw compared to the bite that was provided by the dental provider in each case. So it gives you an idea that, ProSomnus was about 0.3 millimeters variance in 3 dimensions of space from the provided bite on average, all the way up to 6 millimeters of variance for some devices, based on, relative to where the jaw, relative to where the bite was provided. And this overlay image shows a little bit of that. You can see the differences in the teeth between the different devices that were provided back to the lab for testing. So significant differences there in bite variance, but we've been able to maintain that precision transfer of the bite with EVO. Okay. IRB patient preference. This is one of the questions that we asked kind of to sum up the IRB, EVO versus CPAP. The other reason why we're asking questions about CPAP and starting to include CPAP in our data is because we want to provide information so that that each of you can speak to your referring physicians and maybe make an argument for more cases. These showed that 100% preferred EVO over their CPAPs. 100% said they would use EVO more often than their CPAPs. 100% said that EVO was easier to clean than their CPAPs. So, Dr. Yatros and Dr. Elikofer, Dr. Murphy, if any comments here on, how this might impact the patient, and if this is something that you think, might be worth sharing with referring physicians.
I'm shocked to find out that patients like dental devices better than CPAP. That's after 20 years of doing this. That's news to me. Maybe we should tell some physicians this. What do you think, Mark? Justin, we
Well,
want to get the word out there that maybe
my
there's another
physician,
alternative.
my physicians don't usually ask their patients if they prefer it or not, but they tell me they certainly all wear them 7 nights a week, 8 hours a night. That's for
Right.
sure.
Now, I say that sarcastically because everyone knows that that's one of our issues in dental sleep, that the awareness out there. But I am impressed at 100%. I mean, that's a strong number there. I mean, you don't see 100% very often, and to see that on here, I mean, it's a very comfortable device. I've said that small, feels like hardly anything in your mouth, and people are going to like to wear it. I think this is something I'd like to get a copy of in more detail or in this format to use and Justin and mine, our office when we go and meet with physicians. That's some very good information. 100% is pretty strong.
Yeah, we used anything more than 7 as strongly prefer in terms of how we rate it. There were a couple that gave it 8s and 9s.
Okay.
Anything higher than a 7, we said strongly prefer or easier. That was kind of our criteria here for grouping it together. But yeah, we were pleased with these results. And, I think that, physicians want to see data, whether or not this is good data or bad data, don't know, but at least, we want to make an effort to speak their language and make it easy for you guys to do that if it's of value.
Yeah, I know we're running just a little bit over. We got some really good additional information, so hang out with us. I know Mark's answering a lot of the questions, typing it in. We're going to get to the others, so we don't mind staying on a little bit longer. And so if you got to jump off, certainly you can, but we got a little bit more information to get through. So thank you, everyone.
That's that. We've got a couple more slides here, and then we'll get over to Dr. Yatros, some of the things that you want to cover. I'll go quickly through these slides. Jump in if there's something major you want to contribute. Otherwise, I'll clear them and we'll move on. But the point is that when we did these intercept cases, 69% really liked their previous device. And so when, we weren't like we picked patients who were unhappy with their devices when we did these intercepts, yet 96%, again, using, more than 7 as the criteria, 96% strongly preferred EVO to whatever device they were using previously. And then some initial efficacy, preliminary N of 6. We certainly expect to get more in as we get the post-treatment residual AHI scores back. But the pre-post data for the 6 data points we have, baseline was 17.5, residual 2.9 with EVO, average improvement 83%. Again, very early days. Not surprising too, because all of these patients were previously responders to whatever device they were using previously, but it's just to confirm that EVO is able to deliver some efficacy here. No reason why we didn't think it would. It's just still something that we wanted to check. And then overall EVO, 97% said EVO could be used in a wide range of patients. 100% would recommend EVO to their colleagues, and 100% would prescribe EVO again. So really good feedback from the IRB group in terms of how EVO delivered and how it performed, and that they would be interested in recommending it to a colleague who might be interested in trying it. And then the follow-up surveys, 93% said EVO relieved their primary complaint in post-treatment follow-up surveys. Only 1 said it didn't. 93% said EVO relieved symptoms better than their previous OAT device. And 92% said they'd pick EVO if they could only keep just one between EVO, their previous device, and CPAP. Down below is some of the qualitative stuff that patients mentioned during the post-treatment follow-up surveys. We can cover that off later. We just have a whole lot of time to go through it all, but generally good things about it being small and comfortable and easy. Also, just to mention, EVO, even though it's slightly different in design and different material, we are going to maintain our 7-day turnaround time. And we've been able to generate 99.9% on-time delivery with the 7-day production time, even in December. We averaged 6.7 days turnaround time in December. I think the best compliment that we got was, I think Dr. Lindsay Deal's office said, "Hey guys, you made December boring." Usually they're calling, looking for cases here or there, trying to figure out what's going on. And their comment to us was, "You made it boring in December. And we knew where everything was. We knew everything was delivered on time." So we're grateful to make December and every month boring. So there were a couple of questions in chat about iterative advancement, and that's what this slide shows. Iterative advancement means that EVO does come standard with 5 arches. You get the 0-0 arch that matches your bite, and then an upper 2 millimeter, an upper 4 millimeter, and a lower 1 millimeter to allow a full 5 millimeters of advancement from the 0 position. And then if that's not enough, the patient needs to go further forward or backwards. We can always add additional arches after that. But that's what iterative means. You could also order a 0.5 millimeter arch if you need needed just a minor advancement down the road. So that's what iterative advancement means for some of the people who had questions in chat about it. It's not unlike using an Invisalign tray. If you treat somebody with Invisalign, they need to go to the next tray. That's iterative orthodontics. This is iterative titration for oral devices. So in summary, we endeavor to make EVO more comfortable, easier to deliver, durable, hygienic, precise, marketable, and preferred. And we're grateful for feedback from all of you and Dr. Yatros, Dr. Elikofer, Dr. Murphy for giving us clinical insights that can help us get there. It will be available with all the monogram features. We can go into that in more detail if there's people who are interested in ordering. But if things like elastic hooks, it will be available with elastic hooks. I think I saw a question on that from Dr. Addy and Dr. Shanae. Should have, it has enough. It's flexible and it's easy to deliver, but it's not so soft that an elastic is going to pull it off the teeth. As we mentioned, it has that elasticity where once it flexes over the undercut, it elastically flexes back into place to give it enough retention to be able to hold the device in place. So we'll have elastic hooks. And MG stick stands for medical grade class 6, but it really represents more than just the material. It represents the artificial intelligence software that we use to design it, and the robotic milling, and really the ultimate harmonization of all of those different technical capabilities to create an optimized device. So in terms of quick logistics, it's full launch is coming soon. We are forming an interest list right now. Anyone who's interested, please reach out to anyone from ProSomnus. Reach out to me, Sung, Mark, whoever you want to, but certainly the team here. Jerry and Greg, Jody, Sarah, Amy, Michelle, the whole crew, Brandon, Wendy, Curtis and Gabe, anyone, reach out to any of us. We'd love to get you on the interest list. And we're starting to clear people off the interest list right now. We're getting ready for our full launch. We're pretty excited about it. Okay, so Dr. Yatros.
Yeah, we have several more questions. We're going to get to those. I just want to make just a couple of announcements about our next webinars and some other exciting things we have going on at DS3. It'll take about 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll get back to any other questions anyone has. One is we have some new techniques out there, and your device, the EVO, is ideal for this and what we call fast track titration. We have the availability now through this website, Mini HST, these little class 4 for arterial tomography, PAT signal sleep tests that we're giving to our patients. I'll just tease you with the idea. If you want to know more information, come to our next webinar, or come to one of our courses, or contact us at DS3 or go to the Mini HST site. We're including those, at least in our office, with the vast majority of our cases. And now we have a technique where within 5 days, we test these people with all 5 of those trays, all 5 positions. And in the vast majority of the patients, we can get one of the positions in those 5 nights where we are very happy with the results and we're finished. And, back to my saying, you don't know how good you've got it if you're new to this. 20 years ago, we had to send them to the sleep lab and then to go back to the sleep lab. And then we got this Rimmers recorder that was $6,000, and they used it one night. Then we moved them forward, and we moved them a night again. Now, for under $100, you buy more, they're a little bit less money. I can include this. The patient has this for 3 years, up to 100 hours or 14 nights, and they don't have to come in either. It goes to the cloud, and we can see per night if we want it to. So, want to know more about that? Contact us at DS3. That's minihst.com is where you get those, and I've got a whole ebook we can show you how you can get for free. I think it's the next slide that we wrote on this technique. We do we do virtual courses now every 2 or 3 weeks, with the next one's coming up, so 23rd and 24th. These have got very good reviews. You're gonna, if you're new to this, or even if you're not and you want to learn systems to do this effectively, they're normally $400. If you write down this code or you scan the QR code up there, you can get it for $200, 5 hours of CE. And what's not even listed on here, you'll be invited to our billing course, which is another 3 hours of CE. That's included as well. We'll throw that in tonight, and you get these 2 ebooks on how to read sleep tests. They're Rich and I on our DS3 team wrote these in the last few months. One of them's on the fast track technique. The other's on, understanding sleep tests. There's a lot of questions we get about those all the time. I think you'll find these to be very valuable resources that we'll give to you for free. So if you're interested in the course, it's the 23rd and 24th, 7 to 9:30 Eastern. I'll be teaching it myself. This format, but you'll be able to interact. So this is a webinar. We use Zoom meeting. So we encourage you to talk back and forth, and you will leave that meeting with everything you need to know to safely get started doing dental sleep. And then we'll have resources to help you along the way after that we'll include. If you've been doing this a while and you want to find a more efficient way of doing it, join us that day. The 23rd and 24th, the next one, I think, and go ahead and move the slide forward. Yep. Our next webinar, you'll get an email. By the way, you get CE for this, I think. So you'll get a follow-up email from us with that. And our next webinar, we're going to talk about the steps you need. So it's basically our 5-hour course in 1 hour. So it's going to give you an overview of all the steps you need to do this efficiently. My partner Rich Drake and I will be doing that. We'll touch on the fast track titration, but love to see it on that one. And that's free, and you get an hour CE, and it's on Tuesday night, March 2nd at 8. And then one more slide there, and we'll get back to the questions, I think.
Got it.
That's the next date too. If you can't make the February date, we'll offer you the same discount on the 2-night course. I see there's your code, March 199, and we'd love to see you on that. We do limit that, by the way, to 30 attendees, and we have sold out multiple ones in the last year. And I can tell you the most common remark I get from these is, I'm really glad I did that instead of flying somewhere, staying in a hotel room, taking a day and a half of my life. You're going to get actually more information, because we're going to give you resources afterwards to help you with it. So for a couple $100, you get the free ebooks. And if you remind me, we'll let you come to a billing course. We do a billing course about every 5-6 weeks on a Friday, and you'll be invited to that free. And you do get a recording of these for a month too. So if you couldn't be there the whole time, you can share them with your team. And same thing with the billing course. So I think the last slide is just our contact information, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot about that. Our virtual North American Dental Sleep Medicine Symposium. We are very disappointed we can't do this in person. We were going to launch this Evo at the meeting we usually have in Clearwater, but let's look at the positive. You can attend in your whole team for a few $100 to this event. I know Mark's speaking at it. We have 10 great speakers. It's a live event on April 9th, but then it's also recorded and on access information that you'll have for up to a year. And there's there's a premium ticket, and then there's a ticket that's under $100. So really depending on what you want out of CE or some of the other stuff that we're including in the premium ticket, just go check it out. April 9th is the event. If you can't make that day for some reason, it's okay, because that part will also be recorded. And I can tell you, I think we're going to have bigger attendance this year because the whole team can come and everybody doesn't have to take time out of their schedule. It's going to be a great event. We've got some good people. Dr. Bradley Bale, it's a cardiologist that wrote heart attack prevention. I can't think of the name of the book right off the top of my head. And Sharon Moore wrote Sleep Wreck Kids. So we got some really people that I couldn't get in the past because they couldn't make it. Sharon Moore lives in Australia. So we were able to get some really key speakers in. So we'd like to see you there. And then last is our contact information, I think, at Dental Sleep Solutions and DS3. So if you have any questions about Dental Sleep Solutions, DS3, how we help dentists do this, please let us know. You've already had your contact. If you didn't write down ProSomnus contact, do you want to put in the chat or something, maybe someone's contact there, so that if they didn't take a screenshot of that, someone might want to put that in, or you can contact us and we'll direct you to ProSomnus too if you have further questions. So thanks for staying on a little bit later. Mark, how are we doing on the questions? Or anything we want to answer verbally here?
I'm typing as fast as I can.
I see you, man. You're like a secretary over there, man. Going to it. So I see. Is there anything we want to answer verbally here, or you tell me what
let's see.
or Len or anybody.
Well, there was a question about lateral movement. And so just to clarify, with our devices, they come standard with 3 millimeters of lateral play so that the patient does not feel locked in. But that's a preference. That's the default preference, if you will. If you have a patient where you feel like you want more lateral movement, you can write that on the prescription pad and say, okay, give me 5 millimeters of lateral play, or only give me 1 millimeter of lateral play. But 3 millimeters is the default lateral play with our device, and that's true of EVO, but it absolutely can be adjusted if you have a need to adjust it for the patient.
That's a great answer. And I'll add clinically, you might want to think about it before you decided you want to give people lateral play. At one point, I was a big believer that was essential for bruxers. And I don't know, Mark, Justin, what your belief is, but I think many times they're better off and more comfortable not allowing that or not encouraging that patients you think that they really want to go side to side, they do great in the device. And I might have more troubles allowing them to move. So we could probably talk for 2 hours on that subject.
Yeah.
But
well, and I think this is a good device to do that because of the flexibility. So
right.
Even if you gave them less lateral play, the ability for that to flex more, it's going to be a lot more forgiving. A lot of, we look for devices that have some flexibility, and that just makes sense to me. I'm no scientist though.
Yeah, I would say that, and I'm of the firm belief, and Guy, I know a lot of us are, that, when you take somebody who is a bruxer and you start to treat their airway,
right,
they probably have a lot less reasons to brux. So whether we gave them more play, less play, doesn't seem to be a big difference. I see very rarely do I see bruxers still continue to be heavy bruxers when they're in airway treatment. And so it doesn't seem to make a great deal of difference. So I used to ask, Sung will recall, I used to ask for some reinforced posts once in a while on patients, and I just kind of quit doing that. And now with EVO, I wouldn't even think about doing that because it's got that strength and that little bit of flexibility. So yeah, I just give them the normal 3 millimeters, but it is an option that's available. There's patients sometimes who'll ask questions like, hey, am I going to be able to move my mouth? Because I feel like I'm always moving my mouth a lot, or they sleep on their face and it goes to the side. So it's always an option that's available when somebody wants to treat them that way.
That's good to know.
And just one comment to that, Mark's point is that when we designed EVO, I think that's we try to incorporate all the feedback. So when clinicians doesn't have to worry about and picking a device for specialty cases, this will be should be able to treat most of your patients with the EVO product. It's not designed for a type of person, or it's just designed for majority of patients that you see every day.
Any other questions we want to answer verbally there?
So somebody just said, thank me for having a 0.5 millimeter tray. So there are some people who will have a patient that I always call them the princess and the pea patient, somebody who will have a, yeah, thank you. Some people don't even know the fairy tales anymore, but the princess and the pea, you can feel every little thing, and you can tell because every time you're advancing and moving around the Georgia gauge, you're like, oh, I can feel that little. So you're like, that'd be a patient I start to think about a CALP on. I want a micro adjustment or half millimeter advancements. And, you get 5 arches with this device. Len showed the slide on that. And I want you to think that through. So you've got 0, 0 where you start, then you've got a lower 1, and you've got an upper 2 and an upper 4. So you can go 0, 1, you can go 2, 0, you can go 2, 1, that'd be 3 millimeters. You could go 4, 0, that'd be 4 millimeters. You can go 4, 1, that'd be 5 millimeters. So you get 5 millimeters of forward advancement. And I think maybe we'd have to look at the data, but I think in my abstract we wrote for the ADSM, I think we had to go backwards maybe 2 out of 140 or 160 times that I had started somebody a little bit too more advanced. And the beauty of having the extra arches available is I was able to go backwards 2 millimeters and start there if I'd started somebody too aggressively. And if 5 millimeters wasn't enough because you'd started too conservatively, then you could order an upper 6 and go 6 and 7 millimeters, really whatever somebody wanted to do. So it's got incredible range in terms of what it can do until Sung runs out of, and his designers run out of where they can put the arch in relationship to the post, and they can just keep making arches for you.
And I'll add that with our fast track technique, we'll talk about taking a conservative forward bite. You don't have to get carried away like we used to. And with 5 millimeters advancement, that typically gets us to we call the target position where we want to end up. Most of the time we get to the position that's acceptable with that. But the good news is with this device, if those cases that we don't have to worry about sending the device back and adding acrylic and doing all kinds of crazy things, that we can request another arch and go further. But again, that's not necessary most of the time. Someone's asking if this session will be available. Yes, so we can make it available. Email us at info@dentalsleepsolutions.com and give us a few days. That'll be posted on YouTube or somewhere. So people, ProSomnus, Len, if you need copies of that too, we did record this. So
Guy, if you could go back to the slide, or Len, if you could go back to the slide with the reps' names on it, I would say that there's a lot of great questions that are like, there's even questions about pricing and stuff like that. And with volumes and rebates and things like that, it's hard to answer those straightforward. And so it's best that they just reach out to their rep from a regional standpoint. That's the easiest way to get those kind of questions. And questions about sample models, things like that, all good.
If they don't know their rep, who should they reach out to?
They can reach out to Michelle Bryant or me. They can reach out to Jerry Vogel. But Michelle Bryant can guide them right to somebody. She's right in the middle there.
Okay.
Any teasers on PDAC approval, Sung, Len? Obviously.
Well, that question was, I've answered that question 15 times in the chat boxes here.
Oh, you did? All right, perfect.
But yeah,
the challenge with PDAC is a tough spot because it's the reimbursements are so low. It makes it difficult to justify innovations in that space, right? Because really innovations add costs, not reduce costs. But yeah, we're absolutely thinking about how to do that. We want to launch this product first, really see how it performs clinically over a longer period of time. And then, yeah, certainly there's a lot of opportunity for us to do PDAC line extensions or other things from this point forward. Not a problem.
Well, I'll just say we launch new product every year, so
stay tuned.
Exactly. Are there any other questions that came up with some frequency that maybe you've already answered, but maybe might be good to share with a larger group?
Yeah, there were a lot of questions about biocompatibility and if there were any allergy restrictions or anything like that. This is clearly the most biocompatible, safest material I think that's ever been conceived or used in dental sleep medicine in any way, shape, or form. There were a lot of questions about how do you advance this, and I'm guessing that there might be some people on who've not had an opportunity to use an IA or an IA Select, and it's called iterative advancement. So you actually get multiple arches. And the posts, the concept would be, think about the posts, thank you, Len, the post staying in the same spot, and the designer just, the artificial intelligence and the software moves the arch 1 millimeter or half millimeter, whatever the design is, forward, or the upper arch backwards, which is essentially the same thing. And that allows for the movement of the mandible forward. The maxilla doesn't really move backwards, but in the relationship, the mandible moves forward. And so you can just keep iterating the same device and iteration of the same device. That's the term iterative advancement. But the beauty of that is, instead of a jack screw that can get gunked up, or a metal that's attached to plastics or this particular MG6 technology material that can be a weak point where something can break, you have this monolithic material, easier to keep clean, less breakage, etc. So it's just easier all the way around. I remember, and Sung probably gets so tired of hearing the story, but the first time I saw this, I have worn pretty much all of the prototypes we've ever come up with. This is back in, going back to 2013. Sung comes walking up with this prototype and hands it to me, and I said, what's with this? What's with these vertical posts? And we're talking about the 90-degree posts. And he says, that's what you asked for. And I said, that's not what we asked for. He said, yeah, you wanted to be able to hold the mandible in its therapeutic position, even if the patient's mouth hung open. And that was like an eye-opener to me, a brain explosion, because I'd always thought the mandible moved on the 70-degree arc of a curve, and that's why all the devices had that. And this 90-degree post meant, yes, if the patient's mouth hung open, they wouldn't retrude. It was fabulous. And I said, wait a minute, there's only 2 arches and there's no screw. How do you advance it? And he reached from behind and he pulled out 2 more arches. And I said, you got to be kidding me, 4 arches? How can you afford to do that? And he says, well, the biggest expense is in the labor of the design and all of that, and the milling materials and all that, so that to mill another second or a third or fourth one allows us to have this iterative advancement, and then we don't have all these parts and pieces breaking. It was just like, again, Sung came to this as an engineer, not a dental technician. an engineer with all kinds of patents and medical devices and things that he's done in other parts of his life. And he and Dave Coons, and they just think these things through with a different set of eyes than how we've looked at things. And it's the same thing with this material. We actually came to Sung and said, hey, people are telling us we need a little bit of flexibility. How can we do something with a soft liner? So it's interesting for me, the paradigm shift is, I think I need something, I want something, and Sung turns around and comes back and gives us what we really need. And I think I needed a flexible material, and all I had was my dental knowledge, and I said, I need a soft liner or this printed nylon because that's what I've seen. And he said, here's a whole new proprietary material technology you can use that meets your guidelines. And you're like, holy crap. But that's how he comes at things. It's fun to work with him that way. It really is.
Thank you, Mark.
Mind blown.
Well, thanks to everyone for sticking with us, and Dr. Yatros, Dr. Elikofer, thank you, and the DS3 team for having us tonight. It's really been a pleasure. We're excited to launch EVO, and grateful we could do it with with input from you and your clinical teams on how to make better devices.
Well, thanks for allowing us the opportunity to work with you again, and we look forward to working with you and your team and ProSomnus for many more years in the future. Great company. We always enjoy working with you. I think a big part of it is we genuinely are all trying to do the same thing, and that's help more dentists, help more patients with their airway problems. And innovations like this are going to make that goal more obtainable. So thanks for all you all have done. I know it looks like I can't even imagine the amount of work and effort it's gotten into this, gotten you this far. And if you haven't tried one of these, everybody, get out there and try them when they start becoming available. I know that you're launching that as we speak. If you have questions, you've got our contact. We hope to see you on a future webinar. We hope to see you in person again someday in the near future. And yeah, check out our symposium and anything we have to offer on our website. Justin, thank you for being on here too. Mark, good to seeing you. Sung, good to see you as well. I think that's
Thank you.
Wrap it up.
I still need a tour of ProSomnus.
Come on out.
I gotta fly out. I don't think it's a good place to be right now.
No. We'll have to quarantine for 3 months. But
yeah,
once we're through all of this, come on out.
Maybe they have a cot in the lab you can stay in or something. That's probably big enough. It's big enough. I'm sure they can find a spot. Well, thanks everyone. Have a good night. If you have any questions, reach out to any of the contacts we shared with you, whether it's about this or dental sleep in general. We can answer your questions. So thanks. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.